The real power of personal style isn't about fashion. It's about the invisible psychology that shapes the way that you think, perform, and show up. So grab your cup of tea and let's talk about creating a signature style with substance. The idea of creating a signature style isn't this superficial concept designed to purely impress others. It is the idea that you can dress in a way that elevates your confidence, your credibility, and the presence that you bring to your personal brand. Now, the first idea that I want to talk about is something that I have kept coming back to on this channel, and that is the idea of enclothed cognition. This is all about the symbolic meaning of clothing. This is something that I discussed in more detail in my episode around the science of style and the idea that what you wear doesn't just change the way that other people perceive you, it also actually influences you as well. And this relates to research that was conducted, which I've mentioned on this channel before, where participants were asked to wear identical white coats. And they were either told that the coat that they were wearing was a painter's coat or was a doctor's coat. And what they found was that despite the coats being completely identical, those people, those participants that were told that they were wearing a doctor's coat outperformed on attention related tasks the people that were told that they were wearing a painter's coat. So, what was concluded from this research is that the symbolic meaning of clothing can activate different mental processes within us. So, ask yourself when you are representing your personal brand or when you are showing up in your work life or in your social life, if you are representing the person that you most want to, because the clothing that you choose in those circumstances is having an effect on your mental processes and how you show up. So ask yourself, are you representing that person that you want to be? So, for example, are you the creative director? Are you the CEO? Are you the trusted advisor? Are you the performer? Are you the visionary? How are you embodying that vision that you have for your personal brand as a part of your personal style? Now, if you want more ideas specifically on how to define your personal style and the nuances of that, then make sure you check out my earlier episode that I did on elevating your visual brand. And I go into a lot of detail in that episode about how you can use Pinterest to help you to do that as well. My point number 2 for your high performance personal style is when in doubt, go dark. Now, this was something that I talked about in my episode on your dark color advantage and the benefits of wearing dark colors to work. And in that episode, I talked about the significance of dark colors that has been embedded in our society and in our culture. So, traditionally or historically, dark colors were actually something that were reserved for the elite. And that is not for reasons associated with fashion necessarily. It was actually about the process of creating dark colors. It was more involved. It required layers and layers of dye to create colors like black or navy, for example. So during the Middle Ages, for example, black dye was expensive and it was rare. So to wear it was a sign of wealth or status. So European aristocracy, for example, would wear black as a symbol of status. And over time, the color black was something that was also adopted by judges, by priests, by scholars, and other leadership roles too. And this became a symbol of impartiality and wisdom and power. And later, when it came to navy blue, for example, this was adopted by the Navy. It was adopted by the police force. And it became this symbol of discipline, of competence, of control. And research in color psychology, which I've talked about on my earlier episodes as well, has also consistently showed that darker colors like black and navy, for example, are associated with authority, with professionalism, with competence, with power. And navy in particular often generates these associations with trust and dependability, which is why you might notice that navy is a really popular choice amongst brands who are trying to generate trust with their potential customers. And my tip number 3 for your high performance style is to overdress for the occasion. There has been research that has compared formal dressing with more casual dressing. And it has showed that when you dress more formally, you tend to outperform the people that are dressed more casually. And this has been related back to this idea of creating social distance. So you are creating more distance between that casual version of yourself and that highest level performing version of yourself. You're more associated to that leadership identity that you have for yourself when you dress more formally compared to more casually. And there have been several studies that support this idea. So, for example, other studies have looked at how subtle changes can actually also affect perceptions of trustworthiness, of authority, of approachability, of competence, of credibility. So, for example, participants in the research were shown photos of the same person just with subtle shifts in their style. So, for example, they might have had a jacket on or not had a jacket on in the photos. They might have had their shirt tucked in, or they might have had their shirt tucked out. And they were asked to rate the person that they were viewing based on those traits, based on their trustworthiness, their approachability, their credibility, their competence, their authority, for example, as I mentioned earlier. And it showed that whenever they were dressed more formally, so for example, the addition of a blazer or a more structured silhouette, they were rated higher for their competence and their suitability for leadership. So whenever you have the option of choosing between a more casual outfit or a more formal one, remember the impact that this can have on your performance and the perceptions that others can have of you as well. And my point number 4 is status signals. Now, I have never been one to advocate for status symbols for your self-validation. I don't believe that you need to flash your brands everywhere or to buy brands in order to feel confident about your personal style. But I do think that the idea of status signaling is a more interesting discussion. And this can be applied in different ways outside of just having to wear brands. So, for example, there was research that was conducted with male participants where they were asked to wear either casual clothing, like sweats, for example, neutral attire, or to wear a suit to dress up. And they were put into a negotiation setting. And what the research found was that the people that were wearing the suits were rated more favorably than the other 2 categories. They were rated somewhat predictably as a higher status, but more interestingly, they were also rated as more competent and more persuasive than the other participants. And even more interesting than the observers' perceptions of the well-dressed participants was that the participants themselves, who were dressed in the more formal attire, actually performed better in the negotiation setting as well. They demanded a higher value, they more successfully negotiated their positions, and they were less likely to make unnecessary concessions as a part of that negotiation as well. And add to that, internally, they actually also had a lower heart rate and displayed more internal control. And so this gave them an edge in their performance. So whatever your personal style is, consider making clothing choices with intention. Thanks so much. For more on elevating your visual personal brand, then check out my earlier episode on this topic. I'll see you in the next episode.